Hey guys, welcome to the One Life podcast. We're here with Alexandra. So she has a restaurant in town, Burnt Offerings. Do you want to give me a little bit rundown on your restaurant and what you do?
Yeah. So I own a restaurant called Burn Offerings. It's kosher cuisine, and actually, it's cuisine from around the world that follows strict kosher rules.
Okay, so what does that mean exactly?
It means that in the kosher world, there is over 613 rules that people
Is it
follow,
really?
live in their life, and a lot of them belong to food, keeping
Okay.
kosher lifestyle, so to speak. So we adhere to those rules in the restaurant to make sure that we provide our customers with the best quality food that also just happens to be kosher.
What are some of the food rules for kosher?
So the most not widespread, no. The most there are a few major rules that you have to
Okay.
follow. One of them is you cannot eat meat and dairy together.
Together.
Yes,
Okay,
you
but
cannot
you can do it
absolutely
separately.
you can do it separately.
Any day of the week?
If you eat dairy, you can eat meat right after.
Okay, but you just can't have it in the same meal.
But if you ate meat, you cannot eat dairy for 5 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you eat chicken for dinner, you
Yeah.
cannot have ice cream unless it's a coconut ice cream. Right? So you have to
Gotcha.
wait for 5
Okay.
hours. And you absolutely cannot have it together. So you will never have cheeseburger in kosher world.
Gotcha.
One of those two ingredients is going to be fake. Either it's going to be fake cheese or the fake meat.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever get people come in the restaurant trying to push the rules?
No,
the-
people don't push the rules because that's something they grew up from their
Okay, so it's
childhood.
very strict.
But when we do have people who are not keeping kosher but do have religious, they have Jewish identity,
Okay.
and they used to what they call kosher style
Gotcha.
delis and whatnot, then they will try to ask for real cheese in their pastrami sandwich. But
Gotcha.
it
So
doesn't happen.
who's the bad guy? Are you the bad person? You gotta rock up and tell them.
yeah, I'm the bad person. Yeah,
And how
because
do you-
sometimes we get clients who are from the neighborhood. They just see the name,
Well, I was
they've
gonna
been
say, what happens
driving
if you're
by.
not Jewish?
They come in,
Yeah,
and they're
it
like,
could
we
just
just
be-
want to try.
And
Yeah,
then you
so we
gotta-
have to explain, and most people
Gotcha.
respect it, and
Yeah.
it's someone else's religious belief, so you just treat him with respect, So
Okay.
just like you would not offer a Mormon person a coffee,
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
disrespectful,
Yeah.
right? So that's the same way.
That's
So
very
you don't-
interesting.
Yeah. Everybody has a. So in the kosher world, there's two types of restaurants. There's a meat restaurant and the dairy restaurant.
Okay.
So I'm a meat restaurant.
Gotcha. What made you go that route?
About 7 years ago, I met my husband,
Yeah.
and I worked in the food and beverage industry for years, but doing marketing and sales. And when I met my husband, who eats strictly kosher, and we started taking me on the dates to these other places, I just figured this city needs more options. There was a window of opportunity
Yeah, I was
to
gonna say,
do
what-
something else.
Is there other decent restaurants in town, or you?
So
find
there's
that
only
you're-
actually three. There's only
Okay.
three other kosher restaurants in town. Were three restaurants at a time,
Oh, okay.
and they were all Mediterranean style cuisine.
Gotcha.
So it was your hummus, pita, shawarma, those Israeli salads, so
Okay.
those typical items that people think of when they think kosher.
Okay.
And I had a vision that you can make food that is anything and still follow the kosher guidelines.
Gotcha.
We just have to tweak it a little bit.
What's been some of the hardest kind of lessons you've learned, or like hardest kind of problems you've experienced trying to do what you're doing and following the rules?
Well, I opened 6 months before Corona, so
So that's
so I think
6
this
months
is the
before
last
Corona.
6
Yeah.
months before Corona,
Okay.
and I've been building my client base, growing my sales every single month from August 19th until March 2020, and then everything came crashing like a bulldozer.
Gotcha. I just stopped.
So we learned a lot. We learned how to survive on when there's no convention business, when there's no tourism in town. The local community is not big enough to be supporting several kosher restaurants.
How big is the local Jewish community?
Well, there is a lot of Jewish people, but people who keep kosher is
Okay.
a community within a community.
Gotcha. What percentage of that would you say?
I want to say right now we have about 10,000 people that keep strictly kosher
So would you say
in the community.
Would you say it's 100,000?
Probably there's 100,000 Jews and
Okay, so it's
only
probably
like
like 10%.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that-
So it's a very niche market. It's
Okay.
definitely not something that you can start popping out on every corner. You know.
Which can work very well for you or against you sometimes, can't it?
Absolutely,
Being
absolutely.
very
I
niche.
saw it as a niche market. Yeah, niche market can work for you.
Yeah.
I saw it as an opportunity to do something different. My location might not be in the best strip mall, but it is very close to the strip.
It's on Sahara, correct?
It's Sahara in Bellevue. Yeah,
It's in a good location. It's pretty central.
Well, it's not, like I would love to be in Tivoli Village, but there's no community in that side of town.
Okay.
And a person getting out of the convention center who's been starving all day is not going to drive to Summerlin for a piece of meat. You know, so
do you get a lot of? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you get a lot of business from the conventions?
Yes, absolutely. 80% of my business is
it really?
Conventions and tourism.
Is there any particular conventions that bring in more of the community?
Yes. So there's certain industries have very heavy influx of Jewish people and mainly Orthodox people out of New York, New Jersey, Miami,
what is that?
LA. Well, jewelry show probably going to be one of the best ones.
Okay.
Yeah, diamonds.
Gotcha.
Jews and diamonds go together.
Really?
Yeah, and then the opposite would be mining convention. We had a mining convention in December, and we had 3 tables the whole night. So not too many Jews go under the ground to mine things.
That's really interesting.
Buy resell, anything buy resell. So any retail conventions, any small dollar store, items, Walmart. So basically, a lot of buy resell, a lot of retail. There is a huge influx.
Talk to me about your marketing experience and how it's kind of helped. Is this your first actual business?
I had a different business. I had an interpreting agency before. I worked for Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
With world famous alcohol brands. So my main experience in America was corporate world. I was a teacher before that, but then corporate world for over 8 years. And then I always had my interpreting business on the side.
What's interpreting business?
I'm actually an interpreter by profession. Simultaneous. So I can do those people when you go to the conventions and somebody's speaking and other people are sitting there with the headphones.
Okay.
So I'm that girl in the booth who is interpreting as the person speaking.
Okay.
It's a skill, that takes years to practice and master. So that's what I do.
Okay. How many languages can you speak? Just the 2?
I only speak English and Russian fluently.
Okay.
I speak a few other languages to get by.
Only.
Fluently on any topic that you throw at me, I can only speak English and Russian.
That's interesting.
So I can go back and forth and interpret either way. So I've interpreted Tony Robbins, for example.
Oh, have you really?
Yes,
That's awesome.
Yes,
I love Tony Robbins.
And he talks fast. So
yeah,
imagine that in about 20 minutes, of that you start getting headache.
Have you got?
I interpreted Pitbull.
Did you really?
Motivational speaking, yeah. I interpreted in courts. I interpreted in medical conventions.
Really?
All sorts of fun stuff.
When you do Tony Robbins, have you got to speak enthusiastic
yeah,
as
absolutely,
well?
absolutely. Otherwise, it's going to be
so you can't just do monotone.
No,
so you got to jump up and
absolutely.
That's
so
awesome.
that's why they put you in the booth. Nobody can see you, but you're doing all the things he is doing.
So you're
because
really
you have
selling
to,
it like he does.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
awesome.
Otherwise, it's going to be boring. People pay a lot of money to come and see him from around the world. So if it's something they want to learn from, but they want to get the message as well, you have to put as much emotions as he does.
What so doing marketing for alcohol? What have you taken from that if you use for the restaurant as far as branding and advertising and marketing?
That's a tough one because my restaurant is a niche market. I think overall experience in doing all sorts of marketing throughout the years. But for example, when we started one of the brands from bottom up. We were involved in all sorts of events. Like one of the brands was sponsor in the UFC fights and boxing matches, and that always includes a lot of models, high-end events, pop-up events, and stuff like that. I can't do that in my industry right now, but I kind of can in a very minimalistic way. So it's I'll try to give an example. I mean, social media. Let's put it. That's one of the huge aspects. that a lot of my competitors are not using. So I can lead the market in that way because nobody else was doing it.
And you're doing a good job on social. Like, coming from somebody who does that for a living, you guys are doing a great job, and you've got the right person doing that.
So building the brand from the beginning, so you I'm not, opening the restaurant. Anybody who ever opens a restaurant, keep in mind, the first 5 years you work for the restaurant, and then after that, hopefully the restaurant works for you. So the first 2 years, you cannot take any money out of what you make. So no matter what, so you have to prepare yourself for that, and that's why for me, building a website, building a strong social media, having professional pictures taken, making sure it's a salivating kind of picture that people's like, well, I want to try that. So all of that costs money, but if you don't do it right away, you'll never be able to build your brand. And again, that's comes from experience that I had in the past. When you're building something new that you're just dropping in the market, it has to be as eye appealing as possible.
From the get-go.
This is not something you're like, oh, I'll do it 3 years from now. If you don't capture people's attention while you're new, cool, everybody's talking about you, then you're gonna lose that, and you'll never pick up that momentum later.
Because most restaurants fail, right? It's really bad odds. Like, I'm not sure exactly odds, but I know it's really hard.
Yeah, everybody has different statistics, but there are, some statistics say 80% of the restaurants fail.
Yeah, and then do you recommend, just for someone wanting to start a restaurant, do you recommend having a certain amount of savings or another job, or before you jump in?
Both.
Okay. And just expect that you're not trying to pull any money from this business anytime soon.
Exactly. So expect that for the first 2 years, you have to have enough savings to live off, or have that part-time job that will be able to provide you with your basic needs, to be able to pay your rent, your food, your clothing, and stuff.
Look after the family.
Yeah. And then also, whatever you budget into building out your restaurant, it's going to come up to double. So just make sure whatever you think, if you think I only need $20,000 to open this taco stand, it's going to be 40 by the time you're done. So just make sure you always have that cushion, or at least have good enough credit to be able to go get a loan.
If you need to.
You need to.
What's
remember, when you're a new business, nobody's going to give you anything.
And it's catch-22, isn't it?
Yes.
What's some of the biggest mistakes you made, like, when starting the restaurant or building the restaurant out? Obviously, under budgeting. Sounds like
labor. I didn't realize how extensive labor is.
What do you mean by
first, a lot of people think that running a restaurant is mainly what your people, even when people approach me, it's like, oh, how much is your rent here? I was like, oh, don't worry about my rent. My rent is very affordable. Rent is nothing. Labor that's where it is.
Okay.
So out of your monthly expenses, you have to remember 40% to 50% of it could be labor.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
so unless I'm not a chef myself, I don't cook. So I'm a visionary, I'm an entrepreneur, but I would suggest, unless you have a very strong chef behind you who will be able to pull the team together and be able to do it, or unless you are the chef or willing to work line every single night, then you got to really calculate your labor costs properly.
How scary is it to have, A, how hard is it to find a good chef, and then B, how scary is it to have a chef and knowing that they could leave? Can they leave at any minute?
Yes, they can leave at any minute.
So how do you get around those two problems? How do you find a chef, especially it's specialized in what, like, you cook? And the way
you can
cook?
train anybody to cook kosher. It's not that complicated. I mean, there's some basic rules, and there are certain ingredients we don't have on property at all. So we have a rabbinical supervision 24/7. So that entry-level rabbi, that's also a mashgiach, that's the proper name for it. He makes sure that everything that's brought on the property is kosher, and with the proper kosher certification, because it also depends. Some certifications are world recognized, some are only United States recognized, some are accepted by certain divisions, and some are not. So everything that's inside the restaurant is already kosher. So nobody's gonna let you bring milk, so you're not gonna make a real cream. You have coconut cream, and that's what you're gonna cook with. So you have to find a chef who is creative and can put things together out of the ingredients that you are able to use.
How did you find your chef?
My chef, actually, I was lucky enough. He just graduated culinary school, so that was his first job. He came in actually as a dishwasher, and then he grew from within.
Oh, did he really?
He was very creative, very willing to give his time. trial and errors, and I gave him an opportunity for creativity and for freedom to do what he thinks is right. And then, we put the dishes out. We test them for 30 to 60 days, and if it's some of them been there from day one and they stay, and others, you have to eliminate. And it might be delicious to us, and we don't understand why customers don't like him, or why the return rate on that dish is 50%.
How do you get that feedback? How do you find out?
You talk to them. Well, first of all, you run your report. So everything, your business cannot be pencil and paper. You have to have proper software, which is another investment that everybody has to keep in mind. You're not going into with the spreadsheet. You have to have a proper software on your POS system.
Okay.
And then anytime somebody gets a discounted dish or a comp dish or return dish, it's all you enter it, you track it all. So then every 30 days you sit down and you.
Okay.
It's basically like you're like a doctor. You're measuring every patient temperature, and you decide who's going to live and who's going to get off the menu.
And then one of your main jobs is like interacting with customers,
and that's
rapport,
of course. You have to be. You have to be present.
How I know there's a saying is like, you have a bad experience, you tell 1,000 people. You have a good experience, you tell nobody.
Absolutely.
How do you get around that? How do you personally get around that? How do you get someone to feel comfortable?
You see, that's probably also another example from my experience that I had during my corporate years. You have to ask for it.
Okay.
You have to. If somebody says, "Oh my God, this is the best kosher experience I've ever had," now I know I can come back to Las Vegas. This is becoming a foodie place. This and that. I would say, please tell Google. Please tell Facebook. If you don't use Facebook, because a lot of religious people don't use social media. You don't use social media. You don't use Yelp. Let Google know.
Okay, just somewhere.
Yeah, and that basically that's what you do. That's one of my things.
If you had a customer and they've only eaten third of the meal, what's your approach on like?
I come up and say, "Do you like the dish? Is there anything there you don't like?" Yeah. And you'll be surprised, 80% of the time people's like, "I'm just full. It's wonderful. I'm just full." But there will be those 20% is like, absolutely not what I expected it to be. I don't like the taste of it. I don't like the cream. I don't like the topping, whatever that is. And they'll offer them something else to try.
What is that something you do? Is it
you offer them if they're already full, let's say they had like several appetizers, now the main comes in and it's not what they wanted, but they don't really want anything else. I'll either comp it. It depends on how much they ate. Because sometimes you'll have the customer who ate 90% of their steak, left a little piece of fat at the end, and says like, "I absolutely hated it." Well, I'll give you 10% off because that's what's left on the. Yeah.
So you do whatever you can to.
You do whatever you can to have that customer satisfaction. Absolutely.
Gotcha. What else do you kind of do to get repeat business? Is it just people knowing you by name? Is it feeling comfortable to?
It's a little bit of both, because again, we're in the first 2 years you building your brand, so you want everything to be as perfect as possible, even if you're losing money on certain things, right? Because if you go ahead and gonna start comping meals to everybody, then you need to understand that your cost of your dish is gonna continue going up, and then you're gonna become not affordable to people. You're gonna be out of their price range, right? So it has to be a balance of different things. So you try to do the best that you can, so people go back. Again, we're a destination place, so people go back to New York, to Miami, to LA, to Chicago, and they live in a very tight community. So next time they are at somebody else's wedding, birthday party, whatever that is, and the other person says, "Oh, I'm going to Vegas for convention. Where shall I eat?"
Referrals.
That's one of the things that is not traditional marketing. So normally, if it was just a regular restaurant, like if it was I was Brio or Fogo de Chao or whatever of the world I was, I would advertise a more traditional way and market myself more traditional way. For me, I live in a world where, again, 20 to 30 people do not believe in smartphones. They do not use social media. So for me, word of mouth means a lot.
Huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas me, it's like 99% social media.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Okay, that's interesting.
But a lot have come from social media, and I do have social media influencers that are helping me to promote the restaurant. Absolutely.
How do you find them?
By following them.
Niche, right?
Yes. You have to find them. I follow them. I watch what they do. I see what then I start the communication and see how we can be helpful to each other.
Okay. Going back on the question earlier, is how scary is it having a chef that the business is?
Oh, it's very scary.
The business is based on the chef, right?
Yes,
the
absolutely.
chef calls in sick or doesn't rock out.
And he knows that too. Oh, he or
I'm
she.
sure
Yeah,
they know.
yeah. They all know. And if something doesn't go their way, they will threaten you to leave. Like at least once a week.
It's also a lot of pressure on them too, right?
Yes, it's a lot of pressure on them as well. But remember, when you're a business owner, this is your baby. You dedicate your whole life, your whole time, every single penny that you have to this.
Yeah.
To the rest of the people is just job,
Exactly. It doesn't matter what they get paid.
And sometimes you get very lucky. You have people who love their job and they love what they do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get, you hire somebody, you just realize they're just there to clock in as late as they possible and clock out as soon as they can.
Yeah. Nobody cares about your business like you do, right?
Yeah.
As the saying goes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Everybody always thinks you as a business owner had to pocket all the money, and here they are working so hard and not getting, paid enough. So that's the normal mindset of a human being. We all think that somebody else is doing better. Otherwise, half of the nation would not be sitting on the couch criticizing the president and the government, right? Because we always think that other guy is doing everything wrong and they're getting all the profit. But we here on the couch know how to do everything right.
Gotcha.
So, it's very difficult to find a chef. And especially right now, it's with the shortage of staff in general, in any industry,
must be hard.
in every industry. I have clients coming from around the world. And they tell me that no matter what industry, and whether it's a healthcare, whether it is mining business, whether it is a warehousing, everybody's struggling right now.
Even outside of America.
Even outside of America.
That's very. I didn't know that. That's interesting. What is it like running a business with your husband? Is that hard?
My husband doesn't participate in any of my business. He has
with the restaurant. You mean?
Yeah, he doesn't.
Oh, so you're just doing this by yourself.
Yeah, I'm doing it by myself. Yeah.
And he's just there for support as a husband.
He's there as a customer most of the time.
Really?
Yeah. He doesn't understand anything. When he's in town every day.
Really?
Every day. And a funny thing, that the perception. If he is in the restaurant, people go to him thinking that he's the owner because he's the man. Right, he's a man sitting there observing, eating. So
gotcha. The girl power, right?
The girl power, yeah.
The more girl entrepreneurs.
But if you ask him, he has no idea where.
Really?
Even,
I didn't know that.
Anything is. Yeah.
So you're the boss.
I am the boss.
The boss of bosses.
Yes.
Gotcha. What I want to touch on. So you came to America from Russia when you were how old?
21.
21. What's I'm from Australia, being like an immigrant. It's different perspectives. What's your appreciation, and what's things that you really like about America that you probably wouldn't have got back home? And do you find that makes you like? There's a saying like immigrants hustle harder because they've had it worse from where they're from.
100%.
How's that kind of played off to you with your life and where you're going?
The same way, I grew up in South Russia, where influence of a lot of multicultural groups on. Perception of a woman is completely different, so for example, my mom never drove a car because my dad believed that women should not be driving.
Oh, really?
My mom still doesn't drive a car, and I would have never driven a car if I stayed at my parents' house.
Really?
So
wow. That's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy.
Whereas now you run a business.
Yeah. I was told, that my job was to play the piano, speak several languages, learn the etiquette, get the best education I can, so I can be the most meritable.
I was going to
in
say,
my circle.
Really.
Yes. So I could marry up. But it was never
someone else can look after you.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't want to be looked after. You want to look after yourself.
I always thought that I can do better than just depend on somebody.
Is that hard to think beyond that when you're suppressed around your environment?
I think so, but I also believe, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and the way she's acting now, I understand that it's been in me since I was 5 also, or even younger.
Gotcha,
that rebellious kind of perception of the world, believing that I can do anything. And I was told my whole life, you're a woman, you cannot do this, you cannot drive, you can't travel by yourself, you cannot do anything, just get married and then everything's going to be okay, And I tell my daughter the opposite. You are who you are, you can do everything, it's on your power, whatever you want to put your mind to, you'll be able to get it done. And I think I'm overdoing it because her self-confidence at like 110 right now, and I actually need to tone it down a little bit when my self-confidence was at 7 and I knew I could do better. So going back to your question, that's a very long answer to that.
No, that's an amazing
question.
Answer.
So coming to America, I first came when I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember my conversation with my mom, and she's like, "So what do you think? What do you think?" You know, and I was in Stowe, Vermont. I said, "Mom, I've seen a man pushing a stroller." So to me, it was a shocker, you know, a cultural shock. Like I've seen men playing with their own kids because where I come from, it's a woman job.
Oh, really?
You know, yeah. Men don't do that. They don't cook. They don't clean after themselves.
So the guys aren't family guys.
Well, they believe they are. They are family guys, really? You know. But it's just, it's different, guy, like, you know.
The girl has a baby and that's that, and they just go off and work and.
They go to, well, what do you mean they go for work? They provide really? For you. Really? They provide with oftentimes with the lifestyle that, you know, most of us desire.
Is that the whole of Russia?
No, you know what? No, not at all. Not at all. When I travel to any other parts, especially like Moscow, that's like any other Europe. Everybody is really, you know, it's completely different. I think it's just really South Russia again because of a lot of small multicultural groups, and some of them I still believe in, you know, women place under the sun is different than men's, and it's kind of instilled in Russian men as well. So
very interesting.
Yeah,
that's crazy. When you came here, what was it like? What was your biggest appreciation like that you found opportunity? Like for me, like Australia's only got 24 million people, and I come here as like 330 million people. And if you work hard, there's so much opportunity. And it's not that Australia doesn't, but there's so much opportunity.
Absolutely.
Here. What's some of the main things that you notice?
The same, the land of opportunity. There's no other better way to describe it. You know,
if you put your head down and grind.
Exactly. When I came in, I worked. I knew that in order for me to be able to afford school, pay for my immigration lawyer, and everything else, and the lifestyle I used to, I need to make $4,000 a month, and that is 20 years ago, right? So how are you going to do that, right? So I worked as a receptionist in the office. Then after that, I ran to the restaurant, worked as a waitress. Then I had 2 days off where I cleaned people's houses from dawn to night and charged $150 back then for huge mansions, $150 per house. So I could have done 4 houses in a weekend, you know. So I needed to make my $1,000 a week, and that's how. And oftentimes I slept 2-3 hours.
Gotcha.
But the fruit of my work paid off,
Gotcha.
You know, and then eventually, I mean, it took a good 3-4 years before I started seeing the products. So it didn't happen overnight.
And it never does.
You know,
nothing does.
Money didn't start growing on the trees. But the land of opportunity is here. The problem is that a lot of people don't want to take that chance. You know, this job is not good enough for them. That job is not good enough. I'm not doing this for $8 an hour. Well, I was doing it for $6.25 at a time. You know? That was a minimum wage in upstate New York in 2002. $6.25.
Yeah. My first job was $4.25.
Yeah. So in order to make to that 1,000, I needed to have 4 $6.25 jobs.
Gotcha.
You know? And then I knew like my standards of cleaning were much higher than anybody else, so I could charge more, and people were lined up for waiting for weeks.
Over delivering on what you do.
Always over delivering. Always over delivering.
Gotcha.
That's another thing. I feel like us as immigrants have much higher standards of professionalism. You know, if we take on anything, whether it's cleaning the house, to delivering, a marketing campaign, to, whatever, building your own business, we give 1,001%.
Yeah.
And never think, oh, it's okay. It's good enough. We don't do that.
Yeah, I don't like good enough.
Because we have to fight under our place under the sun. Nothing was given to us.
Yeah. Okay. How hard would it be to make $1,000 a week in Russia at 17?
Not possible.
Sorry, 18.
No. When I first came, my first time I came, and I worked in Stowe, Vermont, I made $5,000 in 3 months. I worked at B&B, waking up at 4 a.m, preparing breakfast, then cleaning the rooms, then cleaning the pool, cleaning outside, and I was done usually. I worked from 4 a.m. until noon.
Yeah.
Once the breakfast was done and everything was done after breakfast. And like I said, clean the rooms, everything, I was done. And then I go to another resort down the street, walk for 40 minutes there because I have no vehicle, and fold laundry for another 8 hours. until midnight. So by doing that, I probably still $6.25, $5. I don't remember what it was an hour. So I managed to save $5,000 in 3 months, and I went back to Russia.
Gotcha.
And at that time, with $5,000 in 2000, I could buy a Russian-made car if I wanted to.
Gotcha.
So that's how rich I was. When people would not be able to save that up in their lifetime.
Really? Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
So, like, when you came here and you're working your butt off, you saw the light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And it was so rewarding. And that's what made me feel so powerful. It's like, if I can, clean somebody else's plates and make somebody else's bed and clean other people's toilets, and I can come back and buy my own car, when all these grown-up men were, working hard at what they do and were not able to do that in their lifetime. So this country is going to give me an opportunity to be where I always felt like I should be.
Yeah.
And, my country at that time could not give me that opportunity.
That's interesting.
Granted, if my parents at a time would allow me, let's say, go to Moscow and go to one of the best universities there and get into, like, IT or something, I could have been making, the same kind of money in Moscow.
Okay.
But with our mentality, the single girl cannot go anywhere by herself, I was stuck, So escaping to America was the only...
What was your parents' thoughts on you going to America? I'm sure they weren't too.
Well, they were like, okay, she's going to school. She'll be back in 2 years. I don't know how. I still don't know. I still don't know at 20. Now you know how old I am. It's been 20 years. And they thought I'll be right back.
Gotcha. I want to touch on that. We're a similar age. What is it? Do you feel like, especially these days, people want instant gratification, and they don't realize that anything worthwhile takes time.
But I think we can blame social media for that.
You think it's got a lot to do with it? Just because everyone's standing in front of a car and holding money in their hands.
Absolutely. Or they're looking at the celebrities. They're looking, let's say, at the Kardashians and say, I want that lifestyle. What do I get to do? Like, release a sex tape? Okay, I'm good. I made it. Yeah. They don't realize that project was 30 years in making and 20 years into producing and doing it. And it took them like 10 years before they got their first grip. It wasn't an overnight success. And they were born in different circumstances. Yeah. That's granted. I'm by no means jealous. I'm trying to create those circumstances for my children so they have a better cushion and better foundation to start from. Yeah. But I do think that a lot of social media has that effect, on the new generation that believes, I should be able to get something like that.
Yeah, and everyone else has got it. I started thinking of Elon Musk. He's like, the problem with social media is everybody sees the best.
Yes. Nobody sees the hard work behind.
Or everyone sees the happy couple, or the guy in the six-pack. He doesn't realize that 8 months of the year he was fat, or this couple just had a fight 2 days prior.
Absolutely.
You always just see like the epic stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of messes up our perception.
Absolutely. So that's why I recommend read a lot of books of the people who made it.
Yeah.
And watch a lot of documentaries. I have 2 small children. It's tough for me to read right now. I try to read 1 book a month, but I just bought a book written by this girl, I can't pronounce her name, on escaping North Korea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very, very excited. I listened to her podcast and I got fascinated. I bought the book. It's been on my nightstand for 3 weeks. I can't start
What's that book called?
If I look at my Amazon account, I'll tell you in a second.
Afterwards.
Yeah. But I do a lot of documentaries or a lot of podcasts. When I drive, when I'm getting ready in the morning, after I dropped off my children to school, I can listen. So
you're about the audio.
Yeah, listen to these people you look up to. Look at their story. Look at the story of the people who made them who they are.
Yeah.
Like Facebook guys, Google, Yahoo. I mean, a lot of this IT successes and the latest success. A lot of these guys are of Russian descent, either Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian.
Yeah.
So I get to listen to their life story, and nobody, sees how they were working with like 3 wires and 1 battery in their parents' basement for 15 years before they were able to get into MIT, and then after that they were able to go to Silicon Valley, and they all got together and started some sort of startup in their garage, and they were starving, sharing one ramen noodles on each other's couches, and then they were able to get something that's going, like talk about, I don't know, the same WhatsApp, the great story of those guys, the and Netflix, and I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, I mean,
Just don't jump on the conclusions. Read about people's story. It's never a success that happened overnight.
it's honestly it's hard work and luck most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the big companies around now nearly didn't make it. And after reading, I read so much. I'm so religious, just like that. Podcasts, audiobooks, constantly 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And most businesses, it's amazing that it survived.
Yeah.
Nike, Netflix, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you and I didn't grow up with cell phones with access to any piece of information.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
When I was coming to America, I had no idea where I was going. There was no internet.
Yeah.
So there was no internet. There was one computer in the public library. You had to stay in physical line to get into the computer, and there was a Yandex.ru. That was our or Yahoo.com was our kind of like email. Yeah. So I was when I was going to Stowe, Vermont, I was trying just to Google where am I going? How am I going to get there? I mean, the program we were part of, the organizations was fine, but it was like I couldn't. It's not as simple right now. You grab your phone, you
that's
zoom in, and you even see how it looks like, right?
Even information.
Google Maps and.
So nothing wrong with working Starbucks, a regular job, but if you're working at Starbucks and you're working there for 40 hours a week and you hate your job, if you take your cell phone and study something for 40 hours, you can replace your income pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't have access to that.
No.
But everyone's like making excuses, blaming other people, pointing the finger. They don't realize that the answer is in your hands. If you got a laptop or access to the internet, you can learn anything.
Absolutely.
Hey, I need to make $400 a week, and there's so many ways of doing that. And
Yeah,
there's so many ways of doing that, doing stuff that you love.
Absolutely, but sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone and do the stuff that you need to do to get where you need to do, So, for example, you with the photography, everybody's like, well, I want to charge this amount of money for 15 minutes of work. They don't understand that it takes hours of editing. This old equipment costs thousands of dollars, and the better you get, the better equipment you need, right? So nobody looks into that by that. And then once you explain, it's like, well, I don't have money to buy any of that. Well, why don't you go get out of your comfort zone, get a job of anything, doing anything to be able to save up for that $2,000, $3,000 camera, those lighting. I mean, everything costs money. Every single, little thing costs money. People don't understand that before you stop making money, you invest a lot.
It's a fine line. It's I know from my personal experience, do I need it or do I want it? Mm-hmm. And I know in the past it's more like I want it. Now it's like, do I need it? Will this help me make more money? Will this help me create more opportunities? And if it doesn't, it's a need and it gets put aside. Mm-hmm. And that extra $1,000 is a lot better in my bank account than having another camera or... And you find the same thing about the restaurant?
Oh, absolutely. This last week we had a very good week. So what did I do? I spent $1,500 on 2 chairs for my lounge.
Oh, did you really?
Yes, but for me it was, do I need it or do I?
Yeah, I want it.
I want it. I do need it because I had a customer who sat down in a chair and then broke it. So the chair needed to be replaced, but the chairs come in pairs. So I need 2 chairs. Yeah, I could have had a much cheaper chair just to replace the chair. But because now I went into okay, I'm going to buy a really good chair.
But that's the thing too, right? Like, if you suck it up and do those hard couple of years and don't spend any money, reinvest your money and make the business more whole and solid, then you have the ability to buy nice chairs.
But it could be $1,000 in my pocket and spend $500 on the chairs, but I decided not to put anything in my pocket and make my chairs more eye-appealing and more, more comfortable for the guests.
There's a balance to it, isn't there?
Absolutely, absolutely. But
what is your favorite book? What is one of the main books you've ever it's just touched you the most? You've got the most value from, or even a podcast for that matter.
They're all in Russian, so it's.
Oh, they're really?
Tough.
So you've done Russian podcasts.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you listen to any Yes Theory or London Real, any of those?
No. RT probably as international as I go in English, as an independent news, but for the most part it's all
really
Russian.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And some good Russian content.
You don't, but I mean yours are all in English. Anyway.
Yeah, mine are all
Do you
English.
listen to
podcasts
from home?
Not from Australia actually. I'm sure there's some good ones, but the problem I'm finding there's so much good content now. It's trying to prioritize what content.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 100 books I want to read. Which one should I read first? And now I'm really trying to educate myself on like fitness, longevity, and now there's so much of that content.
Oh boy, yes.
And I'm still doing like 3-4 hours a day listening, but it's still only 3. Like Joe Rogan's podcast goes 2.5 hours. You listen to that, your day's over.
Right.
And you haven't read a book or anything else. So you really got to pick where you want to. But for me, I'm like, I'll get obsessed with a certain thing and I'll learn it inside out and then I'll move on to the next
I'm
thing.
the same way. I get obsessed with certain cultures. Back when I was teaching, I went to China. Teaching China for 6 weeks
really?
one summer.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was outstanding experience. But every region I went to, I wanted to learn more. So I read everything about the food biting in women. Okay. Then I read everything about the how China was building their communities. Then I read everything about the Ming Dynasty. So it was so fascinating to me, the whole culture. Then last year I went to United Arab Emirates, and I thought I knew a lot, but then when I was there, I was like, oh, I don't know much. So let me learn more about how different emirates were formed and how how does a country consist of 80% of immigrants and only 20% of a local population. And how they grew from the desert 20 years ago to this mega
like they had
$1 billion dollar industries.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we got to take away from the oil. Now we need to find a new way of replacing the money. We'll do it through tourism.
So that's, and that's what traveling for me is, that one of the hobbies, and that's how I recharge and get new air. And then once I go somewhere, then I'm fascinated with either by culture, history, and everything else. I like to learn.
Gotcha.
Just like you said, I'll get obsessed with one certain topic. I'll do as much as I can about that, and then move on to something else.
And there's a saying, right? You can plan and perfect, say, a business, but you learn more by jumping in and doing something than you do. So what I'm kind of getting at, by traveling, you're learning more about that area and that place
absolutely.
than reading any book or watching any
Seeing is believing.
And do you find the same thing with business? Like you find by jumping in with 2 feet,
yes, absolutely, because you can never say, oh, I know how to do this, either from the book or watching somebody else is doing it on Instagram.
Doesn't matter how many books you've read or how many fitness things you've learned. Like, you've got to go through the motions.
Yeah.
You got to put the time in.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
One book that just came to mind that I am in the process of reading is by Anderson Cooper on the Vanderbilt family, the whole Vanderbilt dynasty.
Gotcha.
Because everybody thinks Vanderbilts are so rich. They were 300 years ago, but then throughout the centuries and throughout the generations, they lost all their wealth as well.
Gotcha.
So I'm reading the journey of the family, so that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I read the Hilton last year. It's the same thing. It wasn't until Paris came along. She was really only next person in line, and she was the great granddaughter, I think, and she was the next kind of real entrepreneur in the family. Yeah. Besides that, everyone just kind of heard the money, kept the business running. That was that.
And keep not wasting, but
not pushing it like the
original people did. Yeah, absolutely. Like
because it's really just that one person.
The monarch of the family did it. Nobody else did it for generations. And like my father used to say, money. If you don't replenish money, it has a tendency to run out. So,
I like that.
Yeah.
Just to finish off with, somebody out there looking to start a restaurant, somebody looking to start a business, what's kind of your advice? Besides things you've kind of already told us.
First of all, believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Try to improve yourself. Believe in yourself and being cocky and saying I know everything is a completely two different things.
Yeah, it's not good for anything, right?
No, believe in yourself, meaning know what exactly you want. Set up small goals, move towards those small goals, whatever time it takes. And be prepared. You'll be working 20 hours a day. You're probably going to be lacking social life. Some of your friends going to stop calling because you're so busy building what you're building. You got to make sacrifices along the way, and then oftentimes, like I said, you have to take second or third job to be able to make your dream come true.
Gotcha. And you are going to fail, right?
Oh, you're absolutely going to fail.
You will make mistakes.
Absolutely.
So you need to accept the fact that. What's your approach on failure? Like to me, failing's only failing when you give up. If something.
I like that. Yes, to me, failing. Yeah, I like the way you
fail forwards, right? You learn more by fail. The quicker you fail, the quicker you
not everything you're ever gonna start is gonna take off. I started an internet store. Yeah. clothing store. I always want to have a clothing store. My sister and I started it. We invested a bunch of money. We, created the content. We spent money on professional photo shoots in both countries, and but the store is not taking off. It's just not making money. Are we giving up on it? Absolutely not. It's probably, maybe it has its own lifespan.
Yeah.
But even if we have to shut it down and get stuck with, thousands of socks and stockings for little girls, it's not a failure. We tried. It is, right? You have to try. Unless, you can sit and complain about everything that's going wrong in your life. But, get up, make small changes, and the results will show,
Just one more question to finish off. Would you rather be 80 and know that you failed at that business and know that you tried, or would you rather be 80 wishing that you tried that business?
I would rather fail in 10 businesses, right? For sure. And then
just knowing that you give it a go.
Right. And I always tell my girlfriends, at least we got a story.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Stories are everything.
At least you got a story. It's way better than, I worked at this factory, 9-to-5 job. I hated every moment. My boss was horrible. Everybody was horrible. And I was dreading for my retirement, and then finally hit. I could not even survive on those $2,000 a month that I was making. So you just had a miserable life, and never took a chance and never took a risk.
It's so funny on the stories. Like, the things that have gone wrong the most for me are the things I talk about the most, and not in a negative way. Like, I did a video for on a boat last year, and the boat battery died, and we floated on the river for 6 hours in like 100-degree heat, and it was awful. But I talk about that experience more than I did. Everything went perfect. We saw some beautiful views, saw some pretty birds.
Right.
It's cool, but it's like...
It's the story.
It's the stories are everything, right?
You gotta make stories, yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you for your time. And,
Yeah.
Burnt offerings on Sahara and...
Valley View.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night. Good day. Good weekend.